Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let us call the June 25th, 2025 meeting of the Charter Review Committee to order. And may I ask everybody on the committee to please turn their cell phones off at this time?
Out of sight, out of mind.
Okay. All right, can I ask all rise to pledge allegiance to our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Can I call Mr. James Williams, President of the Hope? Yes, we are. But you can come, Mr. Williams, that'd be fine. All right. I'm sorry, Lena. Let's do roll call.
Ms. Bakers. Present. Mr. Bryant.
Present.
Mr. Coleman.
Present.
Mr. Fouché.
Present.
Mr. Lewis.
Here.
Mr. Pearson.
Present.
Mr. Powell.
Present.
Ms. Robinson. Ms. Turnley.
Present.
Ms. Wilhelmy.
Present.
Mr. Wembley.
Present.
Thank you. All accounted for, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. At this time, I'd like to take the opportunity to let this body know that Ms. Ginger Cody has resigned her position, and I believe that District 9, Super District 9 person has gone ahead and
He's six.
okay,
six.
District 6. All right, very good. District 6 will be represented by Mr. Frank Lewis. Would you like to make a comment or two?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Frank Lewis, affiliate with Payne College. Okay. All right, learning something new already. Frank Lewis, affiliate with Payne College, a longtime citizen of Augusta, Georgia. Worked very well with the city. Thanks, and I'm glad to be here.
We're glad to have you, and thank you for coming. Appreciate it very much. All right, Mr. Williams, it is your podium. If you would just go ahead and, for Ms. Bonner's sake, state your name and address. And
My name is James Williams, and I live at 3408 Pine Hill Road, Hepzibah 30815. And first, Madam Chair, thank you all, committee, for allowing me to come before you. I come not feeling too well this morning. And when I say not feeling too well, because I came before you on the 15th of May last month, and somewhere that should have been maybe your third meeting or so, just about as we were in the process of really getting organized. And my comments to you all were to make certain that, first of all, that there was no rush to do this, and that you make certain that integrity was one of the genres that you would have before you at all times. In other words, making certain. And also being mindful of ethics. In other words, being able to do this job that you've been appointed to do in a fair and equitable way where the citizens of Richmond County would appreciate the work that you've done. When I say I come this morning before you're not feeling too well, I'm somewhat disheartened because of what you were asked to do in terms of integrity and ethics, and be concerned about those things so that you won't tarnish the name of the committee. Well, I'm finding, and I'm certain that some of you have also in the past few weeks and since past meetings, that you've been hearing things that's not too pleasant. And I'm hearing things in the community that's not too pleasant. I don't have to hear them, I've even seen them and witnessed them from sitting in the meetings that I've attended since you started. And concerns are already that decisions have been made that this body already has in its mind that's been planted there as to what the outcome of this is to be. And that you not even had the first public meeting already. And even though you have two subcommittees been appointed, and in the first subcommittee meeting, someone brought a document in, a mock document of an organizational structure as to what the city government should look like, not even knowing what the task of that subcommittee would be, and put it in the mind that this is what it should look like. And in addition to that, things were said and done in previous meeting that you question procedure. But my point to you is this morning is that I believe that this committee has been tarnished, has been tainted, meaning that
Reverend, I'm sorry, the time has exceeded. I would like to reassure you that we have made no decisions. We have spent a lot of time discussing things. We have done procedural things. We have done nothing of substance to this point, so you can rest a little easier. I think what you're also going to find is that we've heard allegations of people being involved or trying to push a certain agenda. I cannot tell you that any one of our commissioners, nor our mayor, nor anybody else has tried to impose something on me. That hasn't happened. If anybody else here has, feel free to speak up. But I think there is a perception in certain parts of the city that that is the case. That being said, I also want you to understand that it is not possible to make everybody happy as we're going forward. People do have opinions born of their experiences, just as you do. What you can rest assured, I think I can speak for all of our commissioners here, are working very hard to come to a decision on what they think. We have covered something like 2,500, 3,000 pages of material between various cities, and you'll hear more about this today from Carl Vincent. So we're doing a very thorough, methodical, incrementally slow job trying to get this right.
okay, well, I would appreciate that if that's what is happening. But there's been indication, and based on
From whom?
Based on what you said, even from my observation, I would question that procedure. I would question a subcommittee who doesn't even know what the task is already, bringing a document in where no one has discussed it, don't know where it came from, those kind of things.
Well, every committee that starts must have a springboard with which to start discussion. That's all that document was. Was not a proposal to vote on. It was a starting point, a springboard of sorts. So if somebody attaches more importance to it than that, that would not be correct.
I hear you and I understand what you're saying, not to be argumentative with you, but even at that.
Can I please request that you stay and we'll speak after what we're hoping is going to be a relatively short meeting. We've got speakers that are waiting.
Okay, I understand if I should find time, but nevertheless, I would hope that, moving forward, that the perception that's out there in the public would be somewhat helped to be diminished by your behavior. When I say your behavior, meaning the community behavior, because when one acts in an unfavorable way, everybody gets the blame for it.
Understand?
Okay?
Thank you for your input. Can we call Mr. Richard Jones?
She's in the queue. I just want one comment.
Mr. Jones, if you can bear up 1 second, let me acknowledge one of our fellow committee members.
I challenge anybody who has questions about any of the work that we're doing, do your open records requests. Request emails, request minutes, request all of the information. Because to get this work done, we have to be empowered with information, not rumors. So please, please do your open records requests. That will get you answer most of the questions you're looking for, and that also helps with accountability. If there are any issues or problems, of course, you know bring that to the people who have that the ability to make some changes there. But do the open records request. So that's what I challenge folks to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. No, that's just me. All right, we're going back to Mr. Jones. I'm trying to balance
The queue.
this roster, this queue here. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Richard E. Jones. I live at 2316 Tudor Drive, Augusta, Georgia. I have concerns and I have some recommendations that the committee can address going forward to the commissioners. I'm gonna deviate from my one of my agenda things of talking about search warrants. I'm going to get with the sheriff about that. But the other one is, my first one was, I would like for the committee to recommend to the commissioners to give the Board of Elections more money for specific monies for advertisement, reference any type of election that come in Richmond County or from the state. Because I go to the Board of Election meetings and I'm not seeing a great participation from the public, and as the voting records show for this county is, to me, deplorable, okay? I get the numbers. So recommendation, more money to the Board of Elections specifically for advertisement on voting on the various media outlets. My next point is to call Vincent. Are you guys going to be looking at the SOPs of the various departments of the county to improve county operations? That's for Carl Vincent. To the board, to this board, I want to make sure or like to see that the power is not diluted of the county commissioners. It's simply saying, we don't need a dictator mayor, okay? Let the county commissioners iron out issues before they cast any votes and send it to the mayor or for the people to know. My last one is recommendations that to the board, to the county commissioners, that we have more transparency in reference splosh money on whatever splosh bill it is. Transparency to the public to show how that money is spent. And the example I can give you is a few years ago, there were $84 million in splosh funds. The county was sitting on it. Then there was a few million spent out of that 84 million. Then in one of the mayor's first town hall meetings, he said there was 66 million left. Where did the money go to? We need transparency on splosh money as a recommendation to the county commissioners. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Okay.
Appreciate it very much. All right, the next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the CRC meeting of June 12th, 2025. I believe you received those from Madam Clerk yesterday afternoon. Are there any additions or amendments to the minutes as presented? If not, can we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? Okay, Tanya made the motion. Lee also seconded. And Lee seconded, and so did Sheffy. The motion. I'm the first of the beautiful voices. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor of that motion? Signify and go ahead and vote.
me get there. Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
you will have to vote, remember. Are you ready? Ms. Wilhelmy?
I vote yes.
Ms. Turnley?
It's your green button again.
Mr.
It's gone.
Bryant?
Yes. There will be number 9 on there.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Okay. It's unanimous.
Good. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you for this. At this time, I'd like to introduce our former Mayor Deke Copenhaver, who I count as a friend, a longtime former neighbor. Very pleased that you were able to be with us today, not once but twice. You're also going to be addressing the form of government meeting at 1 p.m.
I've just missed the municipal building so much for the past 11 years. I had to come down and stay and see Lena, and Natasha, and all my friends down here. So what exactly do you want me to say? Or what do you want me to speak on the topic?
Specifically, we would like to hear from your vantage point what needs improving in order to expedite the efficiencies in government and the delivery of services.
Well, it's interesting to me. Had an opportunity to do a radio show recently with Mayor Johnson, Hardy Davis, and Mayor Young. And so combined in that room, I believe we had 26 years experience in the mayor's office. So everybody that has sat in that seat is in favor of updating the charter. And it basically, I share with people that our government is a government that was formed in mistrust and breeds mistrust to this day. I mean, it was a shotgun wedding. You know, a lot of people didn't think it was going to pass. But when you look around, if you take the personalities out of it, and I hate when people say power, you know, this is not about any personal power. This is about best serving the citizens of this community. And our form of government does not do that. When I was in office, I believe it was the National League of Cities, I did the research. This was, years and years ago, but I believe it was 96% of governments, municipal governments in the United States were either strong mayor or strong manager. So we're in the 4%, 3% of other. So I don't look at any personalities, but I'm like, what can we do to best serve the people of this community? We do need more transparency. I firmly believe in that. I had recommended to the chairman that, the citizens of this community are shareholders. So what about doing shareholder meetings once a quarter to update the citizens on what's going on with the government? What are we aiming to accomplish? Where are we from quarter over quarter? But it's like with the ice storm, the hurricane, I'm confusing my own thing. So there were a group of business leaders that I was on the text chain with. And they said, well, it's such an embarrassment that, Asheville, North Carolina brought in an emergency contractor the next day, but Augusta's not doing that. And I'm like, do you know the decision-making process with the city of Augusta? There are no emergency powers to just allow for somebody just to do that. You can't make decisions unilaterally, and in emergency situations, somebody needs to have the authority, not power, the authority to make those decisions. And I was a very unusual situation for when I was elected. I was 38 years old. I had run the green space program for the city for 4 years prior. I'd been able to build consensus within the body around that issue. And I knew, I had worked with the planning department. I had worked with the city administrator. So I knew all the players. And I was very young. My wife and I didn't have kids. I was able to do it 150%. But that's not the usual situation. And I'm just saying, take the personalities out of it. What form of government? I think Macon, is a good. Mayor Davis said that he sees that as the gold standard for consolidated governments. But I tell people, so this is, the charter is our business plan for the city. And if you don't update your business plan in 29 years, you go out of business. So this is just, to me, it's just updating the plan to make it more efficient and effective. And I will say it's, for anybody in this room, that if you can imagine being in a working situation where your employer, you had 11 bosses. I mean, how functional is that? Or if you are a business owner or you run a business, that you've got 10 other people that you've got to deal with before making a decision. That is not efficient and effective. And I'll tell you, I have great hope coming through the hurricane that our community, everybody that came from all over the United States to help us, said they had never seen a community come together like ours before. And that's people who do disaster for a living. So the people of this community can come together, in these situations. I want to see our local government come together in the same way and work together and put aside any petty differences, because this is, and I've shared with people, it is very concerning to me. I'm on the board of the of Augusta Economic Development Authority. So we're bringing in billions, literally billions of dollars of economic development investment. So we have, we're purportedly the second most church city per capita in the United States of America. We have all these nonprofits. We have the Masters Golf Tournament. We have prosperity. We have a lot of wealth in the community, but yet we have a 24% poverty rate, and 59% of the people that live in the community are in the ALICE category, which is asset limited, income constrained, but employed. So that's the 59% of the people in Augusta are either poor or the working poor. So when you look at that, how does that add up? And it's not just the commission's issue with that. I mean, there are a lot of things. We just have not sequenced our resources together properly. But I would say not having a more efficient and effective form of government does contribute to that. But I think here again, setting aside personalities and just looking at what do other communities do more effectively than us, it's not, this is not, but here again, I'm like, the power thing is just, so for the Augusta Stronger Together campaign last year, it was grassroots, it was positive, it was uplifting. We did outreach to every sector of the community, and it won with 74% of the vote. So I believe people are ready for positive change, and I think this is the people's government once again, and we need to ask the people if they support changing it further, because 29 years, I mean, you've got a generation of people that are about to turn 30 that have never had any input into how their government's run whatsoever, and I don't think that's democracy. I mean, I believe that we need to ask the people what they believe in and what they support and get beyond the idea of power. Because, when I was here, I'm like, okay, I'm a public servant. So I take that very literally, that I'm there to serve the public, not to serve the party or the power broker or anybody else. I'm there to serve the people. So I think doing this, changing the charter in a logical, methodical way, and I applaud the committee and everybody who serves on it for doing this, for taking this on, because I know there are conspiracy theories, and we deal with, Facebook theories and everything, and it's like people putting out misinformation. That's a constant battle, but the work you're doing is extremely important, so I appreciate you guys undertaking it. But once again, this has got to be about people, not politics, in my mind. So
Totally agree.
Any questions you guys may have, and
Can I defer to Ms. Sheffy Robinson?
So I think we need to be mindful when we're asking people to speak before us, when we ask them questions, that we don't lead them. Because to ask the question, well, what do you think is wrong, is very leading versus tell us about your experience. So since we already got the negative, can you tell us what you thought was what was efficient about your time in government?
Well, I will tell you that. And so I'm very much a people person and a consensus builder. And so the form of government, and whether you change the form or not, it's always going to work best if the mayor has a good working relationship with the administrator and the commissioners. So I took the time because, I mean, I would have done it whether the government was a different form or not, but to build those trusting relationships with commissioners. And I think that's important irregardless, but the current form of government that we have, it takes time and effort, but it does sort of force you to do that. I mean, to the form of government we have, in order for it to run best and most efficiently, you have got to have those relationships. So every year we started the year with a retreat. So we would come together and talk about what are our goals for the year of the commission. And I considered the commissioners to be my friends. I mean, we had a good working relationship. And it did, to have to work through issues and build consensus, I think it built a stronger team. So there are some pluses to it, but it's still inherently to have no centralized authority. I mean, in my situation, people said, well, what suffered because of it? I said, well, so an easy example is for the potential for the baseball stadium on this side of the river, I basically said I wanted the commission to build a finance model to see if it would even be feasible and good. So we didn't get to that point, but here again, it forces you, if you want to be really effective as mayor, you've got to, given the form of government, you've got to take the time to form those relationships and build that consensus. And so I see that, because of that, as I say, I would have done it anyways, but the people that I served with, the people that I worked with for, Ms. Bonner and Natasha, and we established great relationships. And so that's, I guess that would be a plus side of the government the way it is. But will every mayor want to take the time to build those relationships? I mean, that would be a question for the mayor.
And one last question, and then I'll concede. If you were given 100 acres in the middle of Georgia and told to start a town, what would you do?
So how do I start Deaksboro?
Sure. I love the name.
I'll tell you, I would do it first by grassroots engagement is my passion. So going out and building trusting relationships within the 100 acres across all lines of difference before you even get started, that's, when I was in office, I never put myself above anybody. I went to the Y every morning. Because I think it's important to have your finger on the pulse, and you don't get it unless you're out there at the grassroots level all the time. So I think beginning with starting those trusting relationships and because that's one of the things that I see within this government is, well, we don't want to make the mayor a dictator because people don't trust, not everybody trusts everybody else. And so we don't want to give up our power to give it to somebody else because we don't trust them to use it correctly. So I think it would start with building those trusting relationships within the citizenry so that you could have a streamlined government to where you could have somebody that had centralized decision-making authority that the citizens trusted. I mean, but every relationship, I mean, marriages, business, anything to me, to be successful, it has to be built on a foundation of trust. So building that trust with the people within that 100 acres would be job one.
Thank you both. I see two lights on down there, but I'm not certain who was first. So it's Mr. Lewis, I believe. I'm going to turn it off. Okay. Mr. Wimberly?
Good morning, former Mayor D. Copenhagen. You spoke some good subjects, and one of them when you talked about economic development, but before you got there, you talked about trust. I've been affiliated with Augusta since 1994. This past first Saturday this month, I had the utility director to come out and give us an update on the plans to solve what has been stated since that 1990 association with Augusta. What are you going to solve the infrastructure problem in South Augusta? And he did a great job of presenting the plans. And in those plans, there's nothing that is going to draw economic growth and development in South Augusta based off infrastructure. Now, you just talked about trust, and when you talk about the money you brought in, you bring it into the county with economic development, and then no one see that money in a certain area or in a certain side of town, that's going to be hard to be a truster. You looking after me. The consolidation of this government, as you said, was a shotgun wedding. And it was a shotgun wedding because the mayor of Augusta had broke this town and it was going into receivership, and so it had to be saved. So that was a strong mayor. So if we have to contemplate the mayor position, I think we need to contemplate spreading out the authority. Would you agree?
Not necessarily, but here again, I mean, and you say that those jobs that are being created don't benefit anybody. You know, Aruba's out at the corporate park, and the billions of dollars are going there. Nothing stops anybody in any district from applying for those jobs. So the rising tide lifts everybody, and that's the corporate park is in South Augusta. And it's interesting that you say that, because when at the height of the recession, we announced that we were bringing in Starbucks production facility. So it was $170 million, 130 new jobs. So we went live on CNN from the groundbreaking, and Commissioner Guilfoyle at that point, we were voting on something that would benefit downtown. And he said, well, I guess I'm going to vote for it, but you know, we never get anything in South Augusta. I'm like, we just went live with CNN on the groundbreaking from your district. So it's to function under this scarcity mindset when we're a community of abundant resources and that we don't get anything here, we don't get anything there. I think that's faulty. And it just, you have to invest authority and decision-making in some position. It can't be, I mean, look, you know, this is government by committee and has been for, I mean, nearly 30 years. And so I do think you need, wherever it may be, but it can't be with 10 commissioners that, you know, somebody, the mayor is the only person that runs at large citywide and is accountable to every district. I will tell you, in my thought, I think if you made every commissioner run at large so that they had accountability to all the citizens throughout, that would be more of a fair, that's what North Augusta does. And so to me, it's not about necessarily authority, it's about accountability. You know, if you're only answering to your one district, you know, I think we all need to be focused on, we're all in this together. I want every district to thrive.
I'm not going against, because I know about Aruba and all those, but I'm talking about the workforce. And so when you look at the unemployment, it's still is tilted away from a certain segment of the community. You just spoke about the election process. Now, I hear a lot of stuff that's on the street, and one of them is how we gonna get at-large election. And you just spoke of that, and that is one of the things that I think we're supposed to be considering here, as I understand it.
Yeah, and it works in North Augusta. But that increases the accountability to where commissioners are accountable to all the citizens rather than simply their district. And so in the decision-making process, it should be not just, well, how does this benefit or hurt my district, but how does this benefit or hurt the greater good of our community as a whole? Because here again, we are all in this together. And it's that scarcity mindset when we are a city of abundance is not helping anybody. It's basically when we have a mindset of, well, if this district gets something, it's taking something away from me. You know, that scarcity mindset is not good in serving our community as a whole. And I told people when I was in office, I'm like, look, you know, I got elected in a city of 200,000 people, you know, some of which voted for me, some of which voted against me, but some of which didn't vote at all. But I should value all of their needs equally, whether they voted for me, whether they didn't, or whether they didn't vote at all. And I tried to serve in that way for 9 years.
Thank you. Excellent points all around. Lonnie, I want to remind you too, though, the mayor you're referring to had no more powers than the people that preceded them. That was more of a personality thing.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, you're saying that, we had to change the form of government because of one
No, I
person.
said that's some of the words on the street. Some of the things that I've already heard that this body is supposed to be considering, and one of them was how we going to be able to reduce this commissioner from 10 to possibly 5.
Lots of ideas are floating around that we would do the
And
community a
he
disservice.
just brought up at large, and one of the things that I've heard already before I even got here was that we wanted to do at large. So I want to make sure that we're here to do a job
We are.
and not a rubber stamp.
And you're vice chairman of that committee, so.
And let me tell you, I mean, I think at the grassroots level, the community has moved so far past the politics. I did a film project for this group that I work with at the national level, where I went down and interviewed people at the farmers market for 5.5 hours. Is America divided? If so, why? All this. Most diverse thing, I probably interviewed 1,000 people, and people said, we're not divided. Look around, look at this. And an older gentleman said, why does the commission not get it? I said, well, probably if they would come down here and spend 5.5 hours interviewing a cross-section of people from throughout the community, and rather than having small meetings where, the same people show up every month. I mean, we need to get to the broader base of the community, and that's not just, the people in this, but here again, 74% of the people in the Augusta Stronger Together vote, but that was because we engaged in churches, in community groups, in civic groups, in garden clubs, in fraternities and sororities. We left no stone unturned. The first outreach we did was to the Latino community, who is often not considered in this process. So my friend Pastor Angel Maestre has a 3-hour-a-day radio show that he does completely in Spanish. So the mayor and I went on there, and the first outreach we did was to the Latino community in their own language. And they were over the moon to be included. I mean, they were so excited because they're like, nobody ever in the electoral process reaches out to us. So this is not, our community is beautifully diverse, and there are groups that never really during the electoral process are even considered. I've suggested that the chairman go on Pastor Maestre's radio show to update the Latino community about the work of this, because that's transparency, and do it in their own language. How about that?
My Spanish is not that great.
Yeah, well, he translates for you.
All right, good job. Ms. Robinson.
So I want to go back to something you just said about South Augusta and the jobs out there between Arubis and Starbucks, things of that nature. Are you also aware that the area codes 30906 and 30909 have the highest pollution rates in the state? Are you also aware that the various cancers are also coming out of those zip codes because of these companies you say that are bringing economic prosperity? That's great and all, but what about environmental justice? So it's great to say we're doing this in South Augusta, but you also have to factor in where oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. On Central Avenue, you're not going to put a factory on Central Avenue, but you'll put it in South Augusta. So we have to consider those things when we're talking about economic development. Economic development is bringing jobs, but it is also bringing what is best for the people. And putting a whole bunch of factories in South Augusta, when number one, you don't have the workforce development to support those, so the people in South Augusta aren't the ones getting those jobs, and the people of South Augusta are being negatively impacted by those. So since that's the claim to fame there of putting those in South Augusta, what is the claim to fame to fix what was done?
Can you show me statistics that people in South Augusta are not getting access to those jobs?
No, I didn't say they're not getting access to those jobs.
You're saying that they're not getting hired by those employers.
Didn't say that either. That's not what I said at all. I spoke about environmental justice.
Okay.
They're being environmentally impacted by that. As far as the jobs are concerned, you can do studies where you can see where the people who work in these places versus where they live, and they don't live in South Augusta. And it's not that they're not getting access to it. It's just that South Augusta has typically been the bane of Augusta's existence. So you have your poorer schools in South Augusta, you have poorer resources in South Augusta, which means you don't have the workforce to support it. So I think it's very disingenuous to sit here and say we put economic development in South Augusta when you put things down there that doesn't benefit South Augusta. So that's my comment. I don't have a question for you. If you want to respond, that's great, but let's do it the right way.
It's easy to point out problems. What would your solution be? What is your solution to the issue of environmental justice?
The solution to environmental justice is to hold...
to recruit these companies?
That's not what I said. You asked me a question, let me speak.
Please.
If a company is going out here doing their business, and that's fine, we want those businesses in the area. We also want them to be held environmentally accountable for what they're doing in that area. So this is, having soil testing and things of that nature. Talking to the people, how are you feeling about our activity in the area? If we want to bring these businesses here under economic development, that's great, but we also have to hold them economically and environmentally accountable. Because you are not doing South Augusta a service by putting these companies out there and say, well, we put a company out there, when they're still missing the other resources that even factor into their ability to get a job at that company. Let's be honest.
Can I go ahead and suggest we take this conversation offline at another time, because this does not directly
I'd be happy to
relate
sit
to
down and
charter
talk to
review?
you about that.
Okay,
But
and
if I can
are
just-
they directly related to charter, your comments?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
So, and this whole conversation actually ties into what you were saying about why do we not elect commissioners district-wide, like throughout the city? Because in South Augusta, they need a different kind of representation than, for instance, downtown. Because, and I'm not going to go into this very deep, but a couple years ago, there was a biodigester plant that was scheduled to be built on Dixon Airline Road. Once we found out about it, there was a town hall held by Tony Lewis, and the company was there. They were explaining what they were doing. And one of the things that they said, we're going to bring all this money to your area, and the people that are visiting for this factory are going to be staying in your motels. And the lady said, but we don't have any down here. But they're going to be eating from your restaurant, but we don't have any down here. And so I think that's what leads to her point of the money may be coming into the county, but it's not going into that area, which is why it is important for districts to be represented individually, because they need to, those citizens there have separate needs than, for instance, I live in 30909 over here. And just FYI, we haven't met the EPA guidelines for decades. So.
Thank you. All right, do we have any other questions? Mr. Wimberly?
No, this is for you.
Okay,
When you bring a guest to speak,
yes?
then every member of this panel should get the opportunity to ask any questions pertaining to the subject, as long as the speaker is here.
And it is the chairman's
Robert
job to keep
rules
the
of
meeting
law.
moving.
That's Robert rules of law, which we're supposed to be operating under. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
And I've got as much time as y'all need if anybody else has any questions, or I'd be happy to sit down with anybody individually. I mean,
Very generous.
And to speak to the cancer issue, I came through cancer 2 years ago, and I know that we do have a bunch of unusual forms of cancer here. That's a given. We are in the esophageal cancer belt, but I think to try to blame anybody for our ills as a community, I mean, in order to address these issues, we need to work together across all lines of difference to solve the big picture issues.
Absolutely. Angela, you still have your light on?
Yes, I just wanted to follow up. I do appreciate you coming, and I've had multiple conversations with you, and I do appreciate your transparency and your willingness to discuss your concerns and my concerns and issues and try and come to some kind of resolution. So I do appreciate that.
Yeah, no, well, as I say to every one of you, we might not agree on everything. That's perfectly fine. It's not, it's healthy to have dialogue across lines of difference. I mean, if we don't do that, we're going to get a flawed product. So I appreciate everybody, but I appreciate all of you agreeing to serve, because this is so important for the future of our community.
Deke, you are a saint, and thank you very much.
Don't ask my wife about that. Thank you.
Can I ask one more question real quick? I didn't see Charlie's light. Charlie Coleman?
Yes, sir. I have a question for you, but first I'd like to make a comment about the environmental impact. I've been here since 1972 when my father moved back from Germany after 24 years of service in the Army. I got on the Augusta Fire Department in 1984. I was a hazmat member almost my entire career. I responded to a lot of different plants. I got to know a lot of plants in South Augusta. South Augusta plants, there was only one that I could think of that was actually ever polluting badly. Cancer is caused by a lot of different environmental impacts. During my career, the 35 years I spent on the fire department, very little at all factories dumping stuff. We had one. And the major factory moved out of here and quit creating chlorine. We had a lot of factories move out of here, and I spoke to a lot of people that worked there, which they had high-paying jobs. They closed them down because of the stormwater fee. It was astronomical on them. And one of them, I'll give you an example, Procter & Gamble. And Starbucks, I toured that place once a year and did pre-plants, one of the cleanest plants I've ever seen in my life. They made coffee. There wasn't any exotic chemicals used. And the only complaints that area got was noise from some people on the 900 and 800 block of Horseshoe Road because they didn't like the noise. But this, in order to grow this county, to bring up the economical pay of people to be able to afford to go out to eat, to do things, go to movies, we need jobs in this community. We need jobs for people to make better money to get off of welfare. But from what I've seen in my life here, as soon as these people get these jobs, they leave Augusta-Richmond County because of the school system, their neighborhoods, the crime, things like that. Now, this question's for you, former mayor. I've also seen dysfunction in our government. And I do agree that the mayor has to have a little more power, and so does the administrator. I have watched numerous of commissioners in my 35-year service in Augusta-Richmond County. It wasn't about power. It wasn't about authority. It was about money. I watched certain commissioners camp out in this building 5 days a week. Some of them use it as a dating pool, trying to date different department heads. They try to influence who gets hired in what positions. They influenced who got contracts. And that's what needs to change. There needs to be oversight and transparency in the money in Augusta-Richmond County. And that will fix 90% of our problems. Thank you.
No, and I'll tell you, unfortunately, I was in a position to do it, but that's why I never had a lobbyist wine and dine me in 9 years. I paid for my own gas. I paid for most of my own travel expenses to stay far away, and I was blessed to be able to do that. But man, I never knew there was a dating service going on while I was down here. But no, we're here to serve the public, and it's just that's what we need to do. And I don't disagree that there have been, every government has its issues, but it is, if people are making money off the government unduly, that's not the best use of the taxpayers' monies. And so, but I appreciate your comment and your input. But I'll just say even with the hiring process, so I saw it happen a lot to where our administrator would make a recommendation to hire a department head who generally I felt like was the most qualified candidate, but who got hired was who was ever better able to politic to get 6 votes. So in that situation, you're introducing just politics into the hiring system, and so you don't always get the best candidates, and that's not the best service to the public good.
Thank you for your service, Mayor. Thank you.
Miss Angela?
If I can just follow up with Mr. Coleman, and I'm not trying to drag this out, I do think that we should probably have a meeting at some point on environmental justice. But just to summarize, if you've only known of one factory, sir, Hyde Park. Hyde Park can never be used for anything ever again. Allen Homes, we currently have 150 families living there, built on an old chemical plant There is pollution all over East and South Augusta. Every single type of cancer is above the national average, and that is something that we should probably address.
I am familiar with Hyde Park, and that facility was closed down years ago, and the contamination was left there until there was floods that brought the chemicals back up. But I do believe there were some politicians that bought some houses down in that area and sold them to the government and made a nice profit also.
Mr. Wimberly.
I would just want to make sure that we're not making a little light of South Augusta. On my monitor, there's an air quality indicator, and it just read to me this morning that the quality, and I'm in South Augusta, the quality of air is dangerous. So the reason the quality of air is dangerous is because of the particles that's in the air that you could breathe and they can get in your lungs. So to tell me that South Augusta is clean, not in my book.
Mr. Coleman?
The biggest air quality control we have in Augusta, Richmond County is a federal problem. They let Fort Gordon burn off thousands of acres every winter, and it just basically settles in Augusta. It's an annoyance, and the only way we can help the air control in this area, because I know very little factories that even put out anything, maybe a few of them on Columbia Nitrogen Drive, and that's it. They're gone. DSM's done closed down. They done left and went to China. But the most air quality problems I see is Fort Gordon burning every year, and they say they burn to keep from forest fires from happening. That's not the truth. They burn to put nitrogen back in the soil to grow them pine trees so they can sell them.
Thank you. Mr. Copenhaver, thank you so much for making yourself available, and I hope the members will take advantage of the opportunity to speak with Mayor Copenhaver because he is a font of information. You can get historic background on things, a different vantage point than what you're accustomed to hearing, and it's certainly worth your time as long as you're willing to.
Yeah, and I'll just, in closing, you look at what's happening in the world. We live in a scary world right now. So through the recovery process, I'm working with the long-term recovery committee. I think we have the best opportunity to heal into the broken places in our community. I want us to be a place, a destination that people want to come because we love our neighbors. And we reflect that love and we show it to them. So in a scary world, I want this to be a less scary place. And I believe in this. Here again, the way we came together in the wake of the storm, that's my job, is to continue to keep us together. Because I see the Holy Spirit working in this community. And, I believe in miracles because I am one. So thank y'all for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you. I share your hope. I'm pretty sure most of this committee shares the hope. We have things we can improve, but it is not a fatal death spiral by any chance, any aspect of things. Also, can I apologize to the committee? We had booked Mayor Young to speak today as well, and unfortunately he's dealing with a family medical issue. He is going to be available to speak at the 1 o'clock form of government committee meeting, so you'll be able to have an opportunity there to direct questions as well. If I can move on to old business, it became apparent within a day or two of our last meeting's vote to alternate the subcommittee meetings. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Oh, yes, okay. Time out, that comment, we'll come right back to it. Thank you, guys. Yesterday, we conducted a phone survey of the members of the Charter Review Committee to permit Ms. Bonner to go ahead and notice properly a meeting that was planned a couple weeks ago, but was somewhat disturbed or left in limbo land because of our vote. And we had a unanimous agreement that this meeting should proceed today. It's up on your screens. So there is the motion that we need to make and endorse. Can I have that motion, please? Ms. Sheffy? Okay, and Mr. Powell seconding. All in favor? Please cast your votes. Whoop, we gotta wait till we get that so we can do that. All right. Thank you, Natasha. Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Wilhelmi?
Yes?
Ms. Turnley?
Yes.
Mr. Bryant?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson? Okay. That motion carries. It's unanimous.
Thank you. So toward that very same topic, Mr. Plunkett, you change this if we need to, but I believe there is a desire to have the committee meetings, both committees meet consecutively, so form of government first, finance second, on the same day that we have the charter review committees.
Madam Chair, it would be appropriate that it would be announced that there could be a motion to rescind this vote, but would not be held today. It would need to be held at your next meeting. And then at that point in time, a motion could be made to rescind the vote to have alternating weekly meetings, or, I'm sorry, alternating monthly meetings or semi-monthly meetings. I'm never sure which one that is. But if you wanted to do both, that would need to be rescinded, not this action.
Next meeting.
But everyone have notice that it's going to be brought up. And then a formal motion would be made next meeting, assuming that it was seconded, then there would be debate on whether to change the order of voting.
Very good. Mr. Fouché.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, since that suggestion and vote for the meetings to be every other week was mine, I would so move today that we rescind that motion.
So that would be a direction to the secretary to put it on next week's agenda. Okay, so that's
Next meetings.
the next meeting's that as in your old business, it will be on the agenda to consider reconsidering that action.
That is
So
not
we're
part of our
there's no
policies and
motion that's
procedures.
needed today. It's just, it's being requested to be on the agenda for the next week.
Okay, very good. Ms. Barnhill?
Madam Chairman, I have a question for Mr. Plunkett. Mr. Plunkett, following that scenario you just listed, if we vote to change it on our next meeting, which will be July 10th, that means the rotation, the question is, does that mean that the rotations of the subcommittees would not happen until that next meeting, which is July 24th, or would that be effective on the July 10th meeting after we take the vote, if it passes?
For the consecutive meetings, it would have to take effect the following section because we have to give public notice of subcommittee meetings. At the next meeting, theoretically, you could approve the subcommittee meetings and then the secretary and the clerk could send out proper notice. But to make it a policy, it would not be able to be effective until it would be effective that day, but it would not go into action till the 24th.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Pulliam? Ms. Pulliam, listen to me. Ms. Backus.
So I have quite a few concerns about this. For those of you who are not aware, last Thursday we got an email stating that Mr. Fouché and Mr. Powell, the two subcommittee chairs, had an issue with not feeling like it was often enough for us to meet every other meeting. And then got a phone call from Ms. Turnley, who said she was putting both of them on the agenda for this week. And we have probably easily 25 emails back and forth between our committee members regarding this issue. I think that we as a committee need to make it very clear that one committee member or any committee members do not have the authority to overrule what we have already voted on as a committee outside of these chambers. Nobody has that authority. We need to clarify that a special meeting, according to Robert's Rule of Order, which our bylaws say that we fall back on, requires that it is an emergency or an urgent issue. prior to this agenda being revised, it did state on there that our next regular meeting was going to be on July 10th, including both subcommittees. You can't have a subcommittee meeting today, but also call a special meeting and use that technicality for July 10th, 2 weeks from now, because Robert's Rule of Order says it has to be an urgent issue that cannot wait until the next regularly scheduled meeting. If you have one today, how are you already calling a special meeting for 2 weeks from now? So we need to be respectful. We talked about trust. Actually, Deke said that. We need to work through issues and build consensus, but we cannot build trust amongst ourselves or with our community if some of us are going and making decisions for the whole body. That's not fair. It's not right. As I stated in my emails, I am disabled. I should have a voice in this too, right? I can't sit in meetings for 7 hours a day. If I could, I would be working, but I don't. And for some of us to take it upon ourselves to make a decision for the entire body is not okay. And it does. It makes me question, and I said this in the email, the only reason I can fathom it would appear on the agenda already for future meetings when we haven't approved it is because those parties already know that they have enough votes to make their motion pass at the next meeting before we've discussed it as a body, before we've all had a chance to be heard on it again. In that case, I wonder why we're even wasting everyone's time with the charter review at all when we can just ask those few members what they'd like to see as an end result and just put it to paper instead of pretending like we all have an equal voice on this committee when we don't. Mr. Williams, yes, sorry, I had to make sure. He talked about that too, and we act like we don't know what he's talking about, but this is what he's talking about, this right here. When certain members have a bigger voice and theirs is more important than others, that's not equality, and we're not gonna get to the end game that we're supposed to be seeking.
I don't know that I would go along with. Don't share the notion that there is some subterfuge involved. We voted last meeting to do alternating weeks. Today is one meeting. We've just allowed that meeting to proceed. So next meeting will be finance. Also at the next meeting, we'll put it on the agenda and go ahead and vote to change that as part of the procedures. And I don't disagree with the need for transparency. I thoroughly agree with that. Ms. Sheffy.
If I can just follow up to that real quick. There was actually 2 issues that came about. The other one was with the subcommittee for form of government that voted as a group to invite Tamika Allen back to speak to them only after they had reviewed other cities' charters. And then Mr. Fouché went on ahead and asked Ms. Bonner to schedule that meeting. That, again, is going against a vote. And that's what we voted on, their subcommittee, not me. But if that's what we voted on, then those votes need to be respected. Individuals do not have the authority to overrule our votes as a group.
And that's why it was corrected.
But it was only corrected after 25 emails.
I didn't participate in all of those, but your point is taken. Ms. Sheffy.
We have to be mindful when we make decisions as a body that, especially, and I'm annoyed by this because now that we're changing something that we had significant conversation on, we were advised by legal, we were advised by the clerk of how the body currently does it, how pretty much all the other organizations did it, and we went a different direction only to come back to that, to what was told to us the first time. We have to be mindful to make informed decisions. If we're asking for legal to give us direction and then choose not to follow it, to then come to the very next meeting later to change it, is disingenuous, is disorganized, and it will continue to be a bane in our existence where we don't move forward because we have to keep going back to change things when we were advised in the first place how to do it. So we need to be mindful when we decide things as a committee, and we need to stick to those things. Every action we take has a positive interaction, and it may also have a negative one. But we can't just keep making decisions that we have to keep changing. We went back and changed so many things that were decided already. When are we going to move forward if we have to keep doing that?
We are trying very hard to do so, but there are many things that intercede. Ms. Barnhill?
Madam Chair, and to Ms. Sheffy and to Ms. Backos, on one hand, I do agree with you, but I also think we need to give ourselves a leadway. When new information is available, we need to go back, we need to take that new information and see if it affects past decisions, because that is also possible. We live in a very technological world where things change at an instant, and there could be stuff that we just did not know.
We're not even allowed technology in the room, so that doesn't factor.
But we do, because we're streaming.
Right, but that still doesn't factor,
what's not
because we were
allowed
already
is
given.
people to use their cell phone. So that's different. If technology was not allowed, people would not be able to stream this. People would not be able to see it on Facebook or on the government's website. So
Didn't
that
get
is
new
not
information.
true.
We were told from the beginning what to do and did something different. That wasn't new information.
But my understanding of what you just said, that negates anything in the future that could happen. I think
There's new information. I'm with you.
Direct all comments through the chair, please. This is
Madam Chair, I think
out of hand
part of
here.
the issue is there's a fundamental distrust among the committee members here. Let's call a thing a thing. From all the emails that Angela alluded to, there has always been something that one party, whoever they is against whoever we or the other they are. I think there's just a fundamental distrust of the people on this committee, which may or may not come from the public. I don't know. I don't know what the street says. The street says what the street is going to say. I think hopefully that all of us, and I would like to think that all of us are mature enough and have our own mind about certain things. We all listen to words from different people, but you've got to have your own. For me, I've got to have my own mind about a situation. I will not be easily influenced by someone who's talking about what the street says. I just think we need, for all the things you said, Ms. Robinson, that we need to be cognizant of, we also need to be cognizant of that maybe people will try to influence us. Well, guess what? That's just the cost of doing business. And you have to be mindful that those things are going to happen, but also be mindful of what you believe and what you think is right, and vote on what you think is right.
May I ask that we move on?
If I can just, because I was actually in the queue before her. 22 minutes and 18 seconds is how long we discussed this at our last meeting. It was about a quarter of the meeting. I actually printed out the transcripts from YouTube. It's amazing.
We're about to take that much up.
So Mr. Fouché is the one who made this motion for our meetings to be changed to this schedule, and Mr. Lee Powell is the one who seconded that motion. It was voted on 10 yes, 1 no, and then as soon as, we're not allowed phones in here because we don't want outside interference, but as soon as we walk out those doors, all of a sudden, now that's not often enough. And not only do we want to reevaluate it again, just like we did with our regular meeting schedule, we all voted on it, we discussed all the different options, and then we come back, and before our next meeting, we're already on a bi-weekly schedule, even though we had not voted on it. So when we talk about mistrust, that's where it comes from. When my voice doesn't have the same weight as somebody else's, because not once have I ever come in here or out there and tried to make a decision for this body, because I recognize I don't have the authority to do so.
Thank you. Any other comments? We're ready to move on with the Carl Vincent Group. Think we're good to go. All right, can I call Dr. Facer to the podium?
Thank you. And again, it is always a pleasure to be with you all. And we were asked to look at a couple of things over the last couple of weeks. And I'll start by one of the things that we were asked to look at is the difference between charters and ordinances, to make sure that we focus on our business. Charters are the foundational documents. As we've mentioned before, they act essentially as the constitution of a local government. They establish its legal existence and its governance framework. It defines the governmental structures, the form of government, whether that be a mayor council, a council manager, or a commission form, or any of the other approved forms of local government in the state of Georgia. And it outlines the roles of officials and departments. A charter will grant and limit powers. And when we say powers, you might think of the term authority. It is kind of the synonym for that in these cases. the powers, the duties, and responsibilities of the local government as well as the officials. It's the framework for local authority. It provides the legal basis for enacting ordinances and policies, and it ensures accountability. It's designed to create effective, responsive, and accountable local governance, so that you want those structures in place so that you can have that accountability to come back to. Ordinances, on the other hand, are the kind of day-to-day operationalization of the charter, if you will. It's the local laws. These are the speed limits, food ordinances, preparation standards, et cetera. The ordinances will implement the charter powers, so it will translate charter language into enforceable rules. It's the primary legislative tool that local governments have. So if you want to create zoning ordinances, for example, that's something that would be covered in the ordinances. So land use policies, et cetera. Ordinances have a direct community effect. It impacts the daily lives, the business operations. Think business licenses, for example, those come out of the ordinances. And the other thing is that ordinances are more flexible and they're more specific. They're more flexible in that they can be changed in a more easy fashion, where the charter, it takes a more robust effort to change it. Thus, the engaged process that you all are engaged in reviewing the charter and making decisions about how it ought to proceed moving forward. Additionally, we looked at just to highlight some of those ordinance topics, as we mentioned, zoning and land use, public safety and health, business regulations, environmental protection, traffic and parking, public conduct, administrative procedures. On top of ordinances, there's also a set of policies, and it was mentioned earlier, standard operating procedures. All of these things, ordinances, standard operating procedures, those things are outside of the purview of our charter review. So we are really focused on these foundational pieces, defining the structure and form of government, what powers ought to be granted, what powers ought to be limited, and how that framework for local authority ought to be put into place. We also looked at just a couple of things to highlight, again, some of the differences in some of these forms of government. The mayor, in a strong mayor system, holds the primary executive authority. They serve as the chief decision maker for city administration and policy implementation. They appoint department heads and officials. They would be selecting the key personnel to lead departments and advisory boards. They would be heading up the development of and submission of budgets to the governing body for their approval. They oversee the daily operations of government, and they possess veto power in a strong mayor context. In a weak mayor context, they don't have the independent executive authority, so they can't unilaterally direct or enforce policy decisions. They typically don't have a veto power, so they can't block or override decisions made by the council or commission. They're technically subordinate to the city council. They function under the direction and the decisions of the governing body. And they primarily have ceremonial responsibilities. Think about them representing the city at events, issuing proclamations, perhaps cutting a few ribbons, et cetera. The Augusta Richmond consolidated government, the mayor's roles, he presides over commission meetings, serves as the official head for ceremonial purposes. He administers oaths and takes affidavits, signs all written contracts and legal instruments, ensures the faithful execution of laws, ordinances, and resolution, exercises additional powers as required by commission ordinances. So again, he doesn't act unilaterally, he acts as granted by the commission, and he is a full voting member of the commission. The administrator versus a manager, administrators are typically appointed by and report to the mayor and/or commission, depending on the structure. It can happen both ways. They implement policies set by the consolidated government. So an administrator in a strong mayor context would report directly to the mayor, where in a weak mayor context, the administrator would report to that combined body, much like we kind of currently see operating in Augusta, Richmond. The administrator implements policies set out by the governing board. They focus on administrative coordination. They have limited independent authority. Most of their actions require commission approval. Their role is shaped by the charter and ordinances. And they can support both urban and rural service delivery within the consolidated boundaries. A manager, on the other hand, is generally appointed by the governing body, which in this case it would be could be the commission in a weak mayor context. The manager would serve as the chief executive officer. They would have the broad authority over the daily operations, budgeting, and personnel. They would have the ability to hire and fire. They would prepare and guide the budget decision-making. They operate with greater autonomy than an administrator. And they are expected to be non-political and professionally trained. And one of the other things that is important about either an administrator or a manager is that they can be removed from office at the pleasure of the appointing body. So if it's an administrator that was appointed by the mayor, all they would have to do is make the mayor unhappy, and the mayor could then remove them from office. If the manager was appointed by the commission, on the other hand, it would take the act of the commission as a whole to remove, as a majority, to remove that manager. Again, the administrator in the Augusta-Richmond case recommends removal and appointment of department heads, but as we've heard, that's not always followed. They appoint and discharge other employees under the authority of the commission. They execute lawful orders, ordinances, resolutions. They supervise all departments under the commission. They attend and participate in commission meetings. They prepare and recommend employee salaries, and they prescribe duties and supervise staff. There are a bunch of additional ones in terms of they require reports from those that they supervise. They prepare the annual budget and lead those budget discussions. They help guide discussions around the financial condition, et cetera. There are other ways in which the commission could be involved. And there are a whole bunch of things that they do: enacting ordinances, approving the budget, setting millage rates, approving zoning, et cetera. And we can go through those. But again, those get to be delineated in the charter document on what those powers granted to the commission would be. And again, appointing people to boards, hearing appeals, et cetera. And there are specific powers that are enumerated, and this is to control and manage all county property. This is under the current charter: levy county taxes, establish, alter, abolish roads, bridges, ferries, et cetera, create or change election districts, fill county vacancies, et cetera. Again, these are things that ought to be, in many cases, governed either by state law, and if it's governed by state law, it doesn't need to be included in the charter. If it's not governed by state law, then it is rightfully included in the charter. Again, just for your reference, we will be emailing all of this out and posting it to the website immediately following the meeting. And that's that information. And I will note that we are preparing some additional information primarily for the Form of Government Committee, but it will be available to all members of the committee around current research. We've pulled about 40 research articles and have started the process of reviewing those. As you can imagine, that's a hefty load, but our goal is to summarize those and get those to you in a way that's usable, so you don't have to read the 20 to 25 pages per research article, and you can then use it to make.
Very good. Dr. Facer, we're about to throw this open to some questions, and I had several for you myself. What percentage of the municipal governments in the state of Georgia follow a weak mayor model?
Yeah, we can look it up here shortly.
Very good. And I believe it was in the single digits and that it was not recommended both by Georgia Municipal Association or the National Association.
It is not a common form because it is more difficult to operate in that fashion in general. But it is the more common structure that is used is either a strong mayor or a council commission manager form.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. We're going to go to, I'm not sure who went first. Was it Ms. Sheffy? Okay, Ms. Sheffy.
So 2 questions for you. Number one, on ordinances. I would imagine that the charter does provide guidance on how ordinances are issued and those things, correct?
Yes, that is correct. On several of these legal issues, I will turn to make sure I'm not misspeaking, but I'm not quite sure.
So, for instance, here in the city of Augusta, it's very hard to get, say, a building permit to build a new subdivision. I know the charter wouldn't specifically outline that particular ordinance, but the charter would have guidance on how ordinances should be developed, I would imagine. Like the process of even creating an ordinance or exercising that ordinance.
That process in the charter? Not necessarily, but I mean, you can put it in if you like.
Then generally, how does a government go about issuing an ordinance if it's not in their charter?
Well,
okay.
Jim, I guess I've been instructed that we ought to get legal counsel on this.
I guess the best way to look at it is that there's certain authority in the charter, zoning is an issue there. Then one of the members of the commission has an idea that they want to impose. Let's if you're talking about approving a subdivision, they want to have public hearings before they do it. So then that motion would be made, it'd be seconded, there would be debate, and then they would do that. Some ordinances do require more than one reading, oftentimes is one, but for most ordinances, it's an idea. It is vetted most of the time through the department. It goes through the administrator and it goes with the legal department to help draft it. And then it's voted on, so it's
that process is what I'm asking. Is that process in the charter?
It is I guess you would say more implicit in it. It's not, in other words, the authority, there's like 4 slides before it says they have the authority to approve ordinances. The process that's followed is a motion, and then sometimes it's a drafting after that, or an ordinance may come as a package, so to speak.
Okay.
Hopefully that's responsive.
Yes. I just wanted to understand if that's something that needed to be outlined versus it's something that's kind of built into the rules of order.
Just that the fact that the power to issue or adopt ordinances is really all that is needed in the charter. That's where the rules of procedure kind of come into play, how that plays out.
Okay, thank you. For my second question, in a strong mayor situation, Why is there a need for a city manager? Not manager, I'm sorry, administrator.
Yeah.
Yes.
So one of the things that we find is that mayors are often elected not because of their technical expertise in running a local government, but they're elected because of their vision for the community. And so what we find is that even strong mayors who are elected and have a full-time technical responsibility for administering the day-to-day affairs of the city, they still need to turn to somebody that has the technical expertise. And so they will, because of that, still hire an administrator to carry out the day-to-day functions. It's really interesting. When you have a good administrator compared to a manager, you sometimes almost can't tell the difference between them. I remember having a discussion, this was 15 years ago, and a community was talking about changing their form of government. And they said, yeah, we want a strong mayor, or we want a city manager like they have in the city of Sandy. Now, this was back in Utah, but the irony was that the city of Sandy actually had an administrator and a strong mayor. It's just that the mayor had delegated significant hiring and firing authority and responsibility to the administrator, but that's something that the mayor controls, how much of that authority they want to delegate. And so you can have some blurring of the lines, if you will, in some ways. But the general response is it's because of the technical expertise of running the day-to-day affairs of a complex organization that is a local government.
Okay, one last question and then I'm done. In governments that are typically consolidated as well as metropolitan, what is, and you may not know an actual number, but can you tell me if the majority of them are partisan or not?
In Georgia, they're not.
In Georgia.
Yeah, in Georgia, they're not.
And that's for metro areas as well?
Just in general, across the state, yes.
Well, no, I don't mean in general. I mean in metro areas, because I know the smaller cities are nonpartisan.
Yeah,
but your larger ones are.
But even in the metro area, the majority of them are nonpartisan elections.
Okay. Thank you.
So I believe we have an answer back to Marcy's question.
Yes, and first I want to apologize to you, Ms. Robinson. I wasn't quite processing your question, but it is correct. Basically, it outlines in the charter that you can pass ordinance for the health, safety, and welfare, and basically anything under home rule just gives you that authority, a general authority. So I do apologize for that. I do want to tell you that there is a tool on GMA. It's called the Peer Cities tool. And it's self-reporting, so I can't say that it's entirely correct because each city reports their own information. But there are 537 cities, I believe, right now in Georgia. And of those, it lists 167 as weak mayor. So I just wanted to answer that question for you. But if you're curious about numbers, and like I said, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's correct because they're self-reporting and they may think they're one thing when they're really another, but it generally gives you generally the right numbers. It is the Peer Cities tool. So if you do put that if you go to GMA and put that in the search, or if you put it in your Google search, it will come up and can answer a lot of questions for you. If it isn't at a meeting and we can't step up at that time, or you can't get us email in time, it is helpful. And there's instructions on how to use it.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Wimberly.
About the number of strong mayor versus weak mayor, when in your statement, it took it as if it was grossly different. What just spoken, you said there's only 45.
So
140, no, 167, right? 167.
Out of the 530. So it's
the
roughly
chart,
20+%.
The chart that you have posted on our website says that was 222 strong mayors and 145 weak mayors. In any case, it's not a huge difference.
Now, you're also leaving out the manager governments in that calculus.
Well, your chart only shows strong mayor, weak mayor.
Yeah, well, I believe that was the question that was asked at the time, and the question now is a little more nuanced.
Now, that was a question asked about manager, but there was also the question asked to you about what is the percent, which is the highest strong mayors or weak mayor, and you indicated that strong mayors was the thing,
Well,
in my opinion.
what I indicated was strong mayors and manager forms of government are the more common than are the weak mayor form without any kind of manager.
I would only say the highest percentage. I wouldn't say the more common, because if you only 60, 45, or 80 difference in a however many hundreds of cities you said, that doesn't seem like a huge difference.
Yeah,
The only real big difference is in the consolidated governments.
Well, and we'll double check those figures to make sure we have those right. But essentially, if you take the 167, subtract the 537, you end up with 360 or something.
I'm comparing weak mayors and strong mayors, not all mayors.
So, but we will revisit that to make sure that we're clear. And
Thank you.
I believe the form of government committee is where we'll likely have that robust conversation.
Very good.
I just want to point out to you, Mr. Wemberly, also, and that's why I pointed out that these are self-reporting, because, the numbers aren't necessarily perfect in there. That's what I will say. So some might self-report as council manager, and that might not be it. So you have to account for all of that. But yes, in most places across the U.S., he is correct. And in Georgia, he is correct as well.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Ms. Barnhill. Pardon me, Mr. Pearson. That's right, that's your old chair. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
As a Charter Review Committee, can we explore the issuance of severance pay?
That is generally not included in a charter document. That would be covered under the ordinances.
Thank you.
I wanted to just mention to you, I think when we're going to try to do it excruciatingly correct, but we also will, at the end of the rainbow, add a number of topics we will recommend to the commission for direction and decisions on things that are outside of our purview as a charter committee, but we feel like we need to include. All right, Mr. Wimberly again.
On the other business?
We're not there yet.
We're not there yet? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions on this presentation? You should know that we have specifically requested of the Carl Vinson Institute specific examples of well-run cities, of cities who have guardrails, borrow Mr. Todd's term, guardrails and provisions for citizens' ability to require certain things out of their bodies that represent them. That'll be taken up at the form of government meeting. Lonnie, you got your light on? You don't need it anymore? Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and move on then to the second topic, which was discussing the surveys.
Yeah, and so if I might give a quick update, you'll recall that last time we talked about some potential research questions or questions that we could ask. Went back to our survey research group to get their expertise, and one of their first responses was, we want to be careful questions we ask to make sure that the information that is received is information that you can do something with. So, for example, I think one of the questions that we had initially placed on there, it came out of the questions that y'all were asked, was what works well in Augusta. Well, they might say what works well is that we have a nice walkable downtown. Well, that's not something that the Charter Review Committee is pertaining to. And so they've asked us to come back and and recraft some of those questions so they're a little more narrowly focused. And so we're working on that, and we will have the revised questions here shortly.
So we anticipate having a pretty comprehensive list perhaps before you leave town today?
Yeah, we're hoping so, yes.
Okay. If I can, I'll move on to the next agenda item because it dovetails nicely with what we're discussing with the surveys. Is it your understanding that we will be in a position to release the surveys at the same time next Tuesday? Ms. Lena's working through some details with the administrator.
So my understanding is that essentially that you're directing us to have a set of questions that will be useful to you as a committee, and that we will have those ready to be live next week.
Yes.
Or at the next committee meeting, yes.
With input from this board.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That is what I'm asking for.
So yes.
No, not postponing it to the next committee. We have a new public information officer who on Tuesday is going to be releasing information regarding the public hearings. We're about to cover this in the agenda option, but the thought is one of our committee members rightfully said, if you ask yes, no questions, you're not going to get actionable information. So there are smart ways to devise questions to obtain information that would help that way, and then there are less productive ways to ask. We're working through those types of things to gauge public opinion at this snapshot time. If we put it out on July 1st with the public hearing notices, it sets the table to be able to address that in public hearings, and then we have 2 more meetings in July to discuss whatever results are coming in. But there are numerous little tentacles from an administrative standpoint that have to be taken care of that we need help with. All right, so we have Ms. Sheffy.
For public record, I just wanted to be noted that I'll be working with Carl Vincent to help with the structure of these questions so that we do get actionable data. Additionally, once the questions are finished, will we need to vote as a committee on those questions, or will the survey just go out through the public relations just like the other surveys do?
It's a good question. What is the pleasure of the body? Would you guys like to receive an email of it, or are you okay with the committee just working through Carl Vincent on this?
Need to review it.
Okay. Is it okay to review it by email and request a public vote on email? Because it's a timing issue more than anything.
If we, hopefully we can get the questions completed between today and tomorrow and have that available to vote by Friday. Does that work for you? Okay.
Ms. Wilhammy? Ms. Wilhammy?
Yes, sir.
We can't have an electronic vote. If this body's taken action, there needs to be a public notice of a meeting.
Okay.
Just as a practical matter, you cannot take action.
Again, case in point why we need to change the charter, because this is...
That would be state law that you need to change.
Now, as a question for you, Attorney Plunkett, there's nothing that says we have to vote on the questions. I mean, we already voted that we're going to do a survey. Do we even need to vote on the questions? Reviewing them, absolutely, I agree we should review them, but is there anything saying we have to vote on them?
You don't have to vote on you don't have to vote on having a survey sent out. You could direct that the Carl Vincent receive any comments that y'all may have, and they to finalize it and send it out. That would be appropriate vote today. But the point I was objecting to is that y'all are going to have an electronic vote. That's the problem.
Got it.
So I think today what it would be probably in order is that for y'all to ask that the Carl Vincent Institute to distribute their form after it's been done, and if there's any objections, to provide that feedback, and they can incorporate that and send it out.
Do we need a motion for that?
I think it would be appropriate so that they would know that they have what direction they need to follow.
Okay, well, I motion that we empower the Carl Vincent Institute to create the survey and provide the survey to the committee for review and comments. via email.
And I second that.
Oh.
And Ms. Selfie, was that also, I mean, Ms. Robinson, was that also to have them distribute are they also to distribute the survey?
Yes,
wanna
also
make
to
sure.
distribute the survey once once all feedback has disseminated.
Thank you.
Okay, does everybody understand the motion?
I have
Yes, Ms. Tanya?
I have a question, and I guess I'm not sure, I guess it's for Mr. Plunkett or maybe even for the whole panel. If I remember correctly, last meeting, we had a lot of discussion and questions about how to get this survey out to people who did not have access to electronic media. Are we going to address that with this, or we're going to take care of that separately after we get the questions approved?
I think we're going to take that up as part of the agenda to finish number 8, because there are a series of things everybody needs to be aware of. All right, if there aren't any comments, will everybody please cast their votes?
Ms. Wilhelmy?
Yes?
Ms. Turnley?
Yes.
Mr. Bryant?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson? That motion carries.
Thank you. Dr. Facer, could you please comment? What I'd like to do now is walk through a couple of the hiccups that we're incurring trying to get ready for the public hearings. I think after our multiple conversations in the last 2 weeks, that we have just about decided it doesn't work to circulate paper requests for information. So then we said, all right, what is something that everybody has? Well, 98% of the population now has access to or personally has a cell phone. And this is where the conversation started with Sheffy. The thought was we were putting it to the survey team about how we could harvest various types of information and how do you strip down repetitive IP addresses and so forth. Could you please comment on their feedback?
So, yes, it is technically feasible to track IP addresses. It is practically not productive to do so. And so while there may be some duplicative responses coming from, but you want to allow those, especially if you're concerned about the broader ability to access a survey. Because, for example, if we want people to be able to use computers at community centers or at the library, you want to allow multiple responses from those places. And so we don't want to eliminate any of those responses. Now, would it technically be possible for somebody to go in and enter it multiple times? Yes. But the practicality, according to the survey research team, is that for this kind of survey, that is generally not a significant problem.
Okay. Does everybody understand what we're talking about here? Do we also expect to deploy like a QR code in the same fashion that planning and zoning recently did?
Yes, we can have a QR code. We can have a shortened URL, both so that whichever way people are more comfortable, whether they're comfortable typing in the little address or the QR code that they can just snap with their camera.
Okay.
I know that is becoming more and more comfortable, even for folks of my parents' generation, for example.
Very good. So we will manage to get the questions. Adrian, up in the booth, you're standing in for Jeff Lewis while he's on vacation. If you could come down and meet these folks to at least establish a point of contact so there can be coordination with our IT department.
We have his contact information.
Perfect.
So we're golden.
Perfect. It would be nice if we could determine a way for people to access the QR codes, vote live at the public hearings, which was the point of the votes being taken after they hear the information. If they have questions, cast the votes.
Yeah, and it is possible for us to put those on whatever the slides you all want to use, to facilitate that.
And then Jeff also wanted you to know that we have a corporate Survey Monkey type arrangement too, that if that's what you choose to use one way or the other. All right, on to the next issue that involves Ms. Bonner, and I'm going to have to call upon her to explain this. We have had a bit of a hiccup with our Tuesday public hearing date. Are you able to speak on that?
Yes, ma'am. And to advise the committee, because of the upcoming runoff races for the Public Service Commission, the recreation facilities are not available because they are voting sites. So we need to come up with alternative places in order to hold the public hearings, other facilities to accommodate the public hearings. So that's where we are now.
All right, so the Monday, July 7th, Warren Road is not affected?
I would need to check with Recreation because I remember her saying most of the centers that host voting will not be available. Wow. So that will include Warren Road.
Okay.
Because Henry Brigham, Diamond Lakes, all of the other larger facilities, Gracewood, they're all holding elections. So I would assume that would include Warren Road.
Okay, so the only one unaffected is the Thursday, July 10th one.
Here in the municipal building?
Here in the municipal building.
In the chamber.
Mm-hmm. So Ms. Bacchus asked the question yesterday about are we able to use schools for that purpose, or does that throw another? We're trying to get a meeting in each part of the county, so.
That would be workable.
Would it?
The school board
allows us to?
Use their facility, sure.
Okay. Ms. Bacchus, did you have a school in mind when you asked the question?
No, but I can absolutely reach out to them and find out what schools are in those direct areas and more easily accessible for the public.
Okay. I think that's probably where we're going to have to go, don't you think?
Yeah, I actually, during lunch, I have a meeting with one of the people from the school. Excellent. So, yeah, I can talk to them then.
Okay, very good. Can you ship that out to everybody and let's get some feedback on that? All right, we have Ms. Sheffy.
So in light of that, with us being like right on top of these dates and having to make adjustments and the surveys going on at the same time, could we consider potentially pushing the public meetings to August so that we then have the survey completed, we have more information to put to the people, and we have better access to facilities? Because the schools, yes, we could potentially use them, but they're all so much smaller in how many people we can get into a room. So would that be something the commission would be open to discussing?
It's possible. Ms. Bonner, question for you. When are the runoffs finished for the PSC?
They will be before August, I'm sure. Yes, they will be before August. And that's a good alternative. If we could wait until after the election period, then that frees up the sites to be able to hold your public hearings.
Okay. Is it possible for us to just check to find out when that is while we're wrapping up the rest of this, because we're almost at the end of the agenda? That's a big one, for sure. All right. Angela, if you would follow up just to exhaust that one.
Madam Chair, just before, I'm sorry. July 15th, that's the runoff date for the election.
Okay.
So theoretically, any date after that, we probably will be able to accommodate at the centers.
All right, so can this committee, I realize we've asked everybody to turn their phones off. Can you please take your phones off and look at your calendars, and let's see if we can come up with a period that will work so we can put these in order.
Really quick, we should still continue the 10th one, though, since we already have that one.
I'm sorry?
I said the one on July 10th, we should still do that one.
I agree.
And then reschedule the other two.
I agree. So it looks like the week of the 21st. We have a charter review committee meeting on the 24th. So ideally, how do you all feel about July 21st and July 22nd, Monday and Tuesday? How's that look? Okay. So Ms. Bonner, could we please put a request through?
Madam Chair, if you just 1 moment, we're just
Sure.
conferring on this.
You bet.
Do we want to find out whether schools are available before we change the dates? Like, can we have these as a backup just in case? Because you also don't know if these facilities are going to be available on those days anyways. So maybe check about the schools first and then have this as a backup?
Okay, hang on 1 second. The question I had for you, just to save you time with chasing down, can you, when we are calling to find out about availability, can we check the 21st and 22nd to replace the South Side meeting and the Warren Road meeting? Yeah. Yes.
Okay, sure.
And
And
that
I
way
will
it's-
advise the committee, you and the committee accordingly, if
All right.
those facilities are available.
That would be
to us.
wonderful. And I think it's better than three of us mixing up the pie. That would
So
be
that
good.
would be July 21st and the 22nd.
Yes, it'd be Monday and Tuesday of that week.
Okay.
We should be out, well, as far as we know, that we're out of the woods electorally. Meanwhile, Ms. Backus, if you're going to check at lunchtime, that would be wonderful to know one way or the other. And so, Ms. Bonner, that would be a tentative hold so that we have a plan A and a plan B.
Okay,
To
sounds
get with the
good.
public before we get much further into the process. Ms. Barnhill?
I have a question. This might be for Ms. Bonner. Ms. Bonner, if we use the schools, will that still give us the accessibility that we need, that we would have at the community centers?
You mean as far as the capacity?
No, as far as communicating.
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, information technology, we're working to make sure that's a mobile system.
Okay,
that
great.
it can be in place wherever we decide to hold the meetings.
Excellent, excellent. I have another.
Please.
A second question. I'm just wondering, is it, and I agree with Ms. Robinson about moving the dates, but if we're going to move them in lieu of the survey, why don't we move all three of them? So that when we do have these public meetings, we'll have the results from the survey, so everyone hopefully will get some of the same information versus the people who meet in July won't have the benefit of the surveys or those results.
Yeah.
That's just a comment.
Okay. Mr. Coleman?
I've got a question. Maybe Angela can answer it for me. Using the schools, they're on summer break right now. The logistics of that, and if somebody wants payroll, are we going to have to, is it going to cost us money for the school system to have somebody there to open up the schools and do different things like that? So if that is the case, I would recommend we stay with the recreation departments that we have a little more control over.
I mean, that's a question that I can absolutely ask. I can't, I don't have an answer to that. I know that they're used for other things. I don't know if there's an invoice behind it, though.
Very good question. Very good question. All right, those were the issues that needed to be resolved that way. Is there any other business to come before this forum today?
Madam Chair, after, I have one comment after your other
All
matters.
right, Mr. Bryant?
I just have a statement. I think it is important, vitally important, that this body can agree on taking respectfully the high road in our interactions. It is important as we embark on this monumental task. Personal attacks or innuendo does nothing in creating an atmosphere of collaboration. We owe this to the citizens of Augusta, Richmond County, our best and sincere efforts in making this process work to the best of our collective abilities.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Beautifully put. Thank you. All right, we have, let's go to Mr. Plunkett real quick here.
Madam Chair, I'm not assuming that the motion next week to consider consecutive meetings would come up, but just to foretell if that was to occur, then we would also be amending our rules of procedure slightly as well. So just wanted y'all to understand that one would lead to some other actions. So just for edification before that next week.
Very good. Thank you, sir. So I believe Macy Lane had brought a document along. She emailed it last night, but I was having email issues, so I couldn't get it to everybody. But this is the edit sheet, and Mr. Lewis, for your edification, you will get 3 separate forms of charter review changes from the Carl Vinson Institute. One will be all 150-plus pages of the charter with highlights. A second option will include the same highlights, but only those pages in the charter that are directly affected. And then this is how we're keeping track from day one of the changes that are being made. So it's a great way a great tool. She was kind enough to run copies and anticipate that no one would have seen the email had I been able to get it through, but we appreciate that.
So, and we will email out to you, and if you'd like us, we can email the entire committee as well with all of these documents, as well as post them on the web to facilitate that public transparency.
I think posting it to the web is an excellent idea in the interest of transparency. I think the committee already has got the first 2 forms. Is there anybody that didn't get those yesterday? Good. No, and I think it's okay. I think when going forward, Rex, if we could get the all 3 copies at once might be one way to kind of streamline the efforts.
Yep, perfect.
All right, thank you. All right, we have Miss Angela.
I have a couple of things. If we could please put on the agenda for next time, I had previously stated I would like to discuss absentee voting. So if we can add that to the agenda, and then also a motion to rescind the vote establishing how many votes are required by this body. I had at the time brought up issues that I had with it. I have additional documentation that I'd like to present to the committee and reconsider that previous vote. And lastly, Mr. Plunkett, in our emails, I had also asked you if you could please address the issue that came out regarding our timeline for our committee to complete its task and the Augusta Press article that came out regarding the contract signed by the mayor, because those are very different dates. The commission voted for March 31st of 2026 for us to complete our work, and according to the contract that was shared by the Augusta Press, it does show that we have until the end of November of this year to get a draft charter to Carl Vinson Institute.
Madam Chair, may I respond?
You bet.
So there was a resolution that was adopted by the Augusta Commission. There was some debate prior to that adoption that was talking about the January to December range. And the resolution that was adopted by the commission says that changed it from an April to March 31st. The Carl Vinson Institute, was working under that assumption. The other part of it, it does say 2 things. One is that it ends on March 31st unless extended. So if the work of the body is not completed, there is the option that it could be extended by the commission. And similarly, there is no obligation to be finished. I shouldn't say that, maybe I'll reverse that. There is no prohibition against the commission moving quicker, or a commission being a committee. So it's basically the county commission recognized that if we start in April on a 12-month process, it could necessarily expedite things, but it did not prohibit you from expediting if you'd like. And it also says that if it takes longer, you could take longer if necessary.
So just to clarify for the record, we are not under a hard set November or December deadline based upon the contract that was signed. We do in fact have, our deadline is March 31st of 2026. Not saying that we can't complete it sooner, but we are not on the deadline that was stated in that contract.
If I could use the phrase that you're on a 12-month process beginning April 1st. Okay. The word deadline is always kind of throws in certain other things, but the 12 months started in April.
Okay, thank you, sir. I appreciate you clarifying.
Ms. Backus, can I clarify something as well? So the absentee voting, and I recall you bringing that back up, I think it might be, we're a little bit early to be taking that up because there are issues that have to be laid down first that we build upon. What I would recommend, if you're amenable, would be for you to draft what you'd like to see on that and get it to the form of government people, because I believe that's the committee that's going to handle that.
Just to clarify, I'm absentee voting for our committee.
I see. Okay,
So for
very
when
good.
we are absent, it's my understanding that the commission is permitted to vote remotely 2 to 3 times a year, but I haven't gotten a copy of that. And Mr. Plunkett, I don't know if you can get us a copy of that policy so that we have that, not that we have to follow it, but that we have something just as a guideline.
I'd be more than happy to, and maybe that will take one thing off your agenda for the next week, but for at least for votes. But I'll send you, it deals with the open meetings requirements, and I'll send that out to y'all as an attachment. And it may not be directly from me. I may ask the chair or Ms.
Absolutely.
Bonner to send it out, because I'm not sure I have everyone's accurate email address, and I don't want it to be not sent to everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Very good. Okay, we have Mr. Wimberly.
Well, Ms. Backus took care of 2 of my 15 questions, so I'm gonna. But I do have something for Carl Vincent here. What I want to know is the procedure that we're on, because I get the impression that there's communication taking place, and in that communication, there's instruction and guidance given.
There is. I can guarantee you that Rex knows my phone number and I know his.
No, I'm
Believe
talking.
me, that's ongoing.
Please. I'm talking about for the management of this charter committee, as in what steps we should be taking. So if there are times when instruction, again, why that instruction is not made available to every committee members? Is this just a personal phone call, or is this Zoom meetings, or what?
Nope. Miss Bonner, she and I talk pretty frequently. I talk pretty frequently. We talk to almost everybody. I talked to everybody except Virginia yesterday in the last 2 days.
So you prevent Carl Vincent from answering my question.
Okay.
So when you pass out instruction, is you giving that to just our chairperson, vice chair, and secretary? Or are you that information instruction that we all could use?
So in general, if I understand what's being asked is when we produce something, we share it back with the chair, and the chair then shares it with everybody.
Is that just the documents that are being posted, or is it?
That's essentially all the documents that we're sending. My understanding is that she's sharing those.
Okay. The chair makes the comments that we've done thousands of documents. I haven't read thousands of documents.
Well, I think it's the cumulative sets of pages. So you received the first set of 150 pages of the charter, and then you receive subsequent sets of 150 pages of the charter.
And you've also been sent charters from throughout the state that I assume everybody has read.
I have not.
That would have been the very first email I ever sent out.
You said charters throughout the state.
Yes, Macon, my recollection was Macon, Columbus, Athens.
That information that I received is not equivalent to what I'm understanding the amount of documents that been put out and been read. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Reading it.
Okay, so if it's the intention of me reading, I need to have it. I don't have the thousands of pages.
Okay, I'll go back and find it for you, but it was sent to the entire commission. I think if it was not the first one, it was the second email sent.
I have everything that is on the web. Mm-hmm. I have everything that's tracking in the email that has my name attached to it. I have all that.
All right. So you don't have the charters from the other 4 cities from the beginning?
I don't recall having that.
Okay, I'll look into that and find out why not then.
I don't have it either.
Okay, who doesn't? Sheffy doesn't?
But she wasn't here, so she wouldn't.
Yeah, I need to catch all our new new people up to that. Please don't hate me when you get them, because it is a lot of reading. All right, does that answer the question, Mr. Wimberly? Or have you got more questions?
Not really, but we'll keep digging into this.
Okay, sounds good. Mr. Coleman?
While we're on that subject, I want to kind of address something that's kind of set me uneasy dealing with some of the committee members. There's a chain of command here. We have a chairperson and a vice chair, and I've read emails to where a member has suggested a different way of what the instructions we've given, and then basically said that they wanted to go talk to the administrator if it's all right with you. To me, that's a violation of the chain of command. And everybody, for this thing to operate smoothly and for us to be a coherent group and on the same page, I think freelancing ought to be a no-no. So I'm just asking everybody to be cautious of that and not to take it upon yourself to go talk to an administrator about something by yourself. That's all I want to say.
Thank you very much. Okay, Ms. Sheffy, you had a comment or a question, I'm not sure.
I'm having a 40-year-old moment right now. It was something to be added to the agenda. Oh my God. I'll come back to me.
We're close to convening, but I share your frustration. And Mr. Bryant?
Since Brother Lewis has just come to the committee, I think it'd be appropriate that he's sworn in to oath the next
Yes.
call meeting.
I think that has already been in process, and the question was, could he do it over the phone, or could he go to Judge Fly's office? That our ever-efficient clerk has already been on it. And we're not sure exactly what the answer yet is, but Mr. Lewis, that is the general plan.
Yes, I've made inquiries to the state court. So once we hear back from the state court judges, we will schedule Mr. Lewis to take his oath.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Bonner, and Ms. Natasha, and Attorney Plunkett. Are there any other questions that need to be brought? Okay, Sheffy had an epiphany.
I got it. I would like to be added to the next agenda, scheduling of additional public meetings.
Say it again one more time, hon.
Scheduling dates for additional public hearings
Yes, okay.
to be added to the agenda for next time.
So let me back up to make sure I've got this right. The dates, are you referring to the second round of public hearings, or for this particular one we've done?
No, second.
Second.
And potentially third.
Okay. Very good. In fact, now, you all do understand that if you want something put on the agenda, all it takes is a phone call, and we'll put it on there, okay? All right, and Mr. Powell. Or is that Mr. Fouché? Mr. Fouché, pardon me.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to take a moment to speak to Mr. Williams. He had 3 minutes at the beginning of our meeting. He made some comments about the form of government committee and the creation of a Venn diagram that showed a strong mayor. I want to assure you, Mr. Williams, that I took an oath of office to this committee. I have made no preconceived notions whatsoever about what form of government we will end up with. I'm wide open.
Sir, I don't think that I accused a particular person. I said the document presented. I didn't say who. I don't know.
That person was me.
Oh, well, that's good to know then. That's good to know, because I did not make an accusation as to who it was.
I'm answering the question. It was me.
Okay, well, that's good. Then even what you did, I don't think was right. I don't think it was right. When I say that personally, and since it's with you, you had not even had the first meeting for that subcommittee.
Sir, with all due respect, someone needs to get the ball rolling. That's all I was doing. I'm open for conversation and discussion with you or any other member of this committee.
It's not a matter of me, sir, okay? It's a matter of the perception.
Your perception
the perception that those kind of actions sends out. Here you have a subcommittee who were just announced and who, in their first meeting, something was presented that you have other members of the committee also. You don't stand alone. But my point, and I'm not going to debate you with that, but my point is the perception that goes out, in which I've heard some that aired on this committee throughout your meetings, and I even heard it from the previous mayor, which there were questions about.
Mr. Williams, may I-
Sir?
Let me interrupt, please.
No, I'm not.
You're out of order.
Well, you're out of order because the chair should be talking to me.
Okay, I'm going to call a hiatus.
Okay.
Is there any other point you'd like to make?
I work for the citizens of Augusta.
Absolutely, and I hope we all would.
And I also, as a citizen, I can say I represent all the citizens, but I represent what is a concern of mine as a citizen.
Duly noted.
And also as a representative of the organization that I also represent.
Duly noted, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, I would love to call you up if you, pardon me, Mr. Lewis. Mr. Jones, I've got too many new names here floating around. Mr. Jones.
I just want to make it known that early voting for this runoff is the 7th through the 11th.
Thank you.
Early voting for this runoff is the 7th through the 11th at all of the satellite recreation centers.
Okay.
So you need to keep that in mind. And of course, the 15th is the actual vote date. Early voting's 7th through the 11th.
Very good. Thank you for the help with that. Sorry to make you. All right, any other business? Mr. Powell.
Motion to adjourn.
Very good. Is there a second?
Second.
Who did? Charlie seconded it. So all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Aye. Thank you for your service. Lonnie, you goober.